Welcome to the Freight Directory podcast, covering all things related to freight, logistics and supply chain, both in Australia and internationally.
Welcome to the Freight Directory podcast. I'm Christine Contos and this is episode 1 of the Freight Directory podcast, and today we have a guest by the name of Jana Stone from Stone Freight Solutions. Welcome, Jana.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you for joining us. So Jana, tell us a little bit about Jana and how she grew up and her journey into her first job.
Okay, so my parents migrated from Serbia when I was a little child to Adelaide. Grew up in that Port Adelaide district zone. So Port Adelaide is renowned for the port, the customs brokers, freight forwarding, and it was sort of an automatic. If you didn't go on to uni, you could secure a job local within the forwarding. Brokerage in particular in the late 80s was very big. Forwarding was a lot smaller. So
you grew up around the port. So, you'd see containers, and you probably asked from a very young age what all that is and had some indication. And did you think I'd be working in that industry? Is that something you thought?
No, I actually thought I wanted to be a nurse. So from one extreme to the other. And then when I did some work experience back in those days, I discovered I just didn't have it to be a nurse.
So you actually did go down that venture.
Yes.
You did, yeah, okay.
And then back in those days, there weren't no recruitment agencies. It was all handled by the government, the CES, and I put my details down and they gave me a series of jobs, and one of the first ones was with a company called Mitchell Cots Freight, and started with them as a young school leaver, straight from school, my very first job, working for an international freight forwarder. Their head office was in South Africa in the UK. And that's how I found out about freight and logistics and customs, and grew into it organically over the years.
Did you enjoy it? Was it something you
Loved
thought,
it.
this is great, but yet it's something I would never have considered?
Correct. Didn't know anything about it until I actually started.
It wasn't like a career I want to aspire for. Like, was it? I mean,
No,
you
not
didn't
at
even, a lot of people didn't even know those opportunities existed.
Correct.
Like
Like today.
Probably a little bit like today. We'll get onto that, So you started with Mitchell Cots.
Yes.
And you were in
Operations.
air freight. So operation meant you did a lot of things, not just one thing. And was there international calls with offices overseas as well? And
Back in those days, Christine, it was the old telex machine. That's how we communicated via telex and people's purchase orders. Like I took customers' purchase orders over the phone, like dictation.
Wow.
And typed them out to Taiwan. I remember customers, making sure I got the orders right because they'd get the wrong deliveries.
Yeah.
So that's how I started. But there were so many avenues you could do: air freight, customs, sea freight, many areas. Back then, logistics wasn't as big as it is today. But yeah.
And so you worked with Mitchell Cots, and did you stay with him for a long time? Did you venture into other areas of the industry and other departments? What was it like?
I left to travel overseas as a young girl. I wanted to, have my 6 or 7 months overseas.
You had a travel bug, did you?
I did.
So you saved all your money, did you,
I
just for
did.
travel?
And then I took off for about 7 months.
Where did you go?
Whole of Europe.
Oh,
Greece, Italy,
fantastic.
Serbia, you name it. I left in June, came back in December only because it got cold.
Oh, okay. You came back for the warm weather.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So left that. And then when I got back, I actually, at the time, got a job offer with a shipping line, a carrier, ANZDL.
Wow. Yeah.
So complete extreme from freight forwarder to a carrier.
Well, you went from air freight to sea freight, which is...
And it was the most boring job in history because they only did one trade lane. And I just went, I can't do this for the rest of my life.
Really? They only did one trade lane?
ANZDL only did USA trade back then. So it was quite boring, just rating bill of ladings, manually typing up bill of ladings, making errors and throwing them in the bin and starting again.
Unbelievable.
So that was where, and then post that, an opportunity came up to work for LEP International.
They were another freight forwarder.
Another forwarder.
New Zealand based, I think.
And then they got taken over by Agility in the last years. And as air freight support person. Great, rocked up to work the first day, and they sacked the air freight manager and said, "You're the air freight manager," and I'm only 21 years old.
Oh, wow.
And
Amazing.
Had no clue, and they threw me into a Qantas course. Back then, Qantas would do a 5-day freight course, intense, so you learn everything about.
Yeah.
Did that,
And then it was sink or swim.
Correct, and exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Until, didn't really enjoy that much. Where did I end up after that? I ended up working for the industry guru, a customs broker called Brian Mousley, owned a company called Taper Enterprises.
And he did customs work. You got into the customs work as well.
And
so you've gone from air freight to sea freight, and now you're managing air freight again, and now you've gone to customs broking. My God, yeah, you're really getting a good diversified view of the industry and the different components in it, right?
Exactly, and he owned a customs brokerage. He was opening a freight forwarding arm, so that's what I was to start off at the age of 25.
Are you still in Adelaide at this stage?
Yeah, I'm still in Adelaide. I'm only 25 years old, and I'm the first
unbelievable
female branch manager back then in the 90s for international freight forwarding. And he also owned a depot and a trucking business. And he was the guy that at the age of 25, you needed someone to mentor you, show you the ropes.
Yep. So you did customs work. Did you go and study the course?
No, I didn't. I found that a little bit boring. Sorry, Christine.
Yeah. No,
I had too much energy for that course. Sorry. And then with his company, I relocated to Sydney to the forwarding division, and that's how I ended up in Sydney.
So you've moved from Adelaide, 25, 26.
30, nearly 30.
Oh, okay. Let's not worry about the years, but you've moved from
Adelaide to Sydney.
Yeah, to the big city now.
Yes.
Right? And that would have been really exciting.
No, very scary,
very
actually.
Scary,
well, you imagine Adelaide.
You travelled overseas for 6 months.
But Sydney, oh my God, like everything was so, close by in Adelaide. I don't know if you've been to Adelaide. Sydney really was an eye-opener, but I loved it. Loved all the opportunities, the work. Didn't remain long with that company, but went to a big multinational, Bax Global, back in those days.
Wow, yeah.
Yes, as ocean manager, and enjoyed that. And then did a few other things for myself, a little business, and then ended up just before 2000 at Conterm, which was a big Swiss company, managing them as estate manager. They got taken over by Vanguard, which is like a market leader now. And I, at that point, had my son and wanted some time out, so took some time out, and that's when Recruitment was born, the year after my son was born. Because
two wonderful things.
Yeah.
Like your son,
my son was the most wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. But, what an amazing change, a real change in your life at a really pivotal point, when you're starting a family. But you've come from the industry and you've literally had experience across a number of areas, so you've got a really wide understanding of the need, and actually in a very deep way, because you actually worked in industry. It wasn't just in this very fluffy top surface level. It was deep. You could talk to the business owners and the managers who about their need and really understand it. And suddenly you've started a family and thought, bugger this, I'm going to start my own recruitment agency. Why did you do that? What motivated you to do that?
Due to the lack of talent. People were not identifying skill sets that suited particular roles even back then. So that was the year 2000. And same struggles that we have, here we are 24 years later, exactly the same struggles. And I thought, having that background industry knowledge, that assisted me to work out what personality, what culture, to assist people. That's what I want to do, assist a person to get the right job for the long term. It was never a short-term plan, it was always a long-term. My best story about that is first girl I ever placed at Vanguard when I started the business, she was with them for 21 years and went internationally with them and over to Brisbane. So I took pride in my staff, were, strong retention within the companies they were working for, but it was my background knowledge that assisted me to assist them.
Yeah, so and obviously you've been able to replicate that. What is it that you do, you think, that does that? Because these are not skills you learn out of a book, right?
Correct.
These are really strong interpersonal skills.
Life skills, moving through all the different roles from, even working in operations, working in management. Managing staff is the biggest skill, even in today's
Oh my
market
God,
and
do you
everybody's
learn? Do you
market.
learn?
So that's what is the hardest challenge.
Yeah.
All the operational stuff you can learn and nail it, but managing personalities, keeping people enthused, motivated,
Yep.
all of those characteristics. So they were the things I think for recruitment that really work well for me, because I would, assist people and say, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? And guide them into that to make sure that they're not making the wrong choices. There's not always 100% guarantee.
So
but
you listen. You actually
yes, that's a good way to describe
you
it.
listen, you get to know the person, and you really can then also tap into what you think their strengths are and how they could apply in a career.
Exactly.
And so you actually help them get on the right path. Sometimes they're not thinking straight. Youngies don't always know what their opportunities are. Neither do oldies really sometimes, right? But you can actually have those deep conversations with them and really tap into their psyche and their emotions and actually make a recommendation as well for them.
Exactly. And I developed that with myself over the years. In the beginning, when I started, to be honest, I was quite emotive about everything. I think it's a bit of a female trait, and in new business and probably being a new mum as well. So put a lot more emotion into it. And I was, personally offended if, candidates didn't want particular roles. Right. But over the years, I grew and understood what they were looking for. And then I became stronger and more confident in giving them that advice as I had grown with the confidence. So
yeah. So of course, that skill set's obviously got stronger and stronger over time.
Okay.
So Jana, what if you were a young person? We touched on a little bit earlier, about careers and this in the logistics industry. There's so much opportunity, and I say that with passion from my own journey, because I can't for the life of me have even imagined where I would be today. But people still don't know the logistics industry offers some incredible career opportunities, and in fact, the logistics industry employs somewhere between 4 or 5 people in every 1 in every 4 or 5 globally.
Well, it has to. Look at us. We're Australia. We're an importing country, so majority of our products are imported. Everything has to be recorded. So we've got airlines, shipping lines coming to the country. Everything has to be recorded. First point of call being, the carrier. Second being the customs broker, recording everything. Third, in between the customs broker and the carrier is the freight forwarder that's involved. Yep. Before it even gets to the buyer, the importer, or potentially if they're going to export. So there's so many avenues. And I've even recently said to a young girl who was national customer service manager, and an opportunity came up to work for a direct importer, a massive food importer. I said, give it a go to see what that
even
side
working
of
for
it.
An importer,
Yes.
even that's got a link to it's not just a
Yes,
service
so
industry.
you can understand how it works, and I said that will build your resume and career over the years to come, because she's still relatively young and she sort of peaked where she could in freight forwarding, but now having a shipping history, she can add that to, fast moving consumable goods and carriers, the big retailers. Even this particular customer is a big importer. So she will gain so much more experience midway through her career from making that little diversion from freight forwarding.
Yeah, which is great advice. I mean, it worked for you, and it is a great way to add to your skill set, to your knowledge, and open your horizons to other opportunities, isn't it?
Exactly.
So once upon a time, people would have to, go to the CES, as you said, or look an advert online to find jobs in the industry. Now they come to organisations like yours and to people like you. Tell me about Stone Freight Logistics. Are you mainly just Sydney-based? Are you located?
We're national. Especially post-COVID, it's made it a bit easier to be national. Prior to COVID, we were sort of mainly focused on Sydney and Melbourne. We would help out customers. But with the introduction of Zoom and Teams, made it so much easier to interview people nationally as a smaller branch in Sydney. It's given us bigger scope. Even internationally, a few years ago, did work for a big international company, producer of milk product, head office in Denmark. They sort of sourced me and wanted someone. And the guy that actually took the job was from New Zealand. Poor guy was supposed to come to Australia to start the role, and COVID hit, and he's been handling the role in New Zealand since. He didn't even make that move. So COVID changed the dimension of working from home, working interstate, working internationally. Even today I had a client say, one of their young ladies that I placed maybe during COVID, she's relocated to Melbourne, and she asked could she take her job with her to Melbourne. They have a branch there. So she's still doing her Sydney tasks from a Melbourne-based office.
Location,
Yeah. And that's made it so much easier and simpler. So for us, it's been great. We can cover all territories, and we do.
So that's helped expand your business, really, hasn't
definitely.
it? It's really interesting. So, yeah, COVID was such a big disruption for everybody, and it did really change the way we do things. And you look at hybrid working models in a lot of environments today, and there's a lot of discussion around it, but you see it, you're still seeing it. And in fact, that's actually helped expand your business because we've adapted with technology, and we are using that technology to be able to communicate with people and interview them. So,
yes.
Meaning that everyone's a little bit more flexible. Do you think the hybrid model will stay around, and how is the logistics industry coping with that?
Well, what I'm seeing now is it was working very well. I've got a lot of customers that say they got a better performance from their staff with working from home because they're not travelling in the traffic for an hour each way. Yes, they might do a few things during the day, but a lot more output was happening. I'm hearing in the market that the big multinationals want to return to office, want to return a lot of staff back to keep, the city offices full. The middle-sized Australian forwarders and brokerages, they're still quite happy. If you're a trustworthy employee and you're doing your job, there's really no reason why you have to drive into the office every day to do your job. So,
What about people looking for employment? What's the feedback? What are you getting?
Just recently, I've had a role in Brisbane. Some want to get back into the office. That's what they were begging for. They said they're tired of being home by themselves. And I do think people need that interaction. You need to have, and in the old days when we sort of started, we were trained on the job, and you had that. You can't just put on a new person in a job and not be available to them to train them. So I think that's what's lacking with the next generation. There's not enough available on hands-on training to keep them
and they're screaming for that. They're wanting that because they want to learn fast.
Yes.
They're keen to take on responsibility. And it's an interesting bit of feedback, for employers to be able to give that, because I also understand there's also a real shortage of finding people with the right skill and to place in the jobs, right? So what opportunities are there in the industry? Is it in main one area, forwarding, or is it, across the board? And then, where are the shortages?
Well, there's plenty of opportunities across the board. It's actually finding people that want to do those relevant jobs. And as you were saying earlier, people don't understand forwarding and brokerage. They haven't, they've never heard of it. I'm currently doing a couple of junior jobs and they've never heard of it. And you explain to them, they say, well, that sounds interesting. And I said, look, you'll only know how interesting it is once you take that risk and you try it. I found it interesting. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a different generation now. They might not. They're very fast-paced. They're very electronic. There's lots of things.
Quite savvy,
But I recently read a report where the number of customs brokers is so limited in that age between 30 to 40. There's a lot of brokers on that 50, 60, and even
plus,
some 70-year-olds are still working.
Can you believe it?
But there's not many. But in the old days, kids would come out of school, be a house clerk, learn the documentation processes, get into understanding compiling, move on to classification. So they're really learning each fundamental area as they're growing. That's not happening anymore with offshoring work. So they're not starting from that scratch point, and then it's very hard to pick up midway what's expected of you. So they can't just be a classifier if they've got no prehistory.
Correct. But employees are expecting that somebody come in with some capability and experience.
They all want experience, but where is this young person or this newcomer to the industry? Doesn't necessarily have to be young. A newcomer to the industry, where are they going to gain that experience if you haven't got that role to enable them to have first-hand opportunity?
Basics, the learning of the basics, and to be able to come across those and be mentored through those as well, which is really important, which is also touches on your point about the hybrid model or working from home all the time. That not only do people not want to be on their own all the time, but they're looking for somebody to mentor and coach.
Exactly, and to understand, and in freight and customs, every day, every job, there is something unique. Not one. I always say to people, there is not one day that is the same. So you might think you're a legend in customs and you understand everything, and all of a sudden something new will come across your desk, and you need someone's support, someone's guidance. And even in freight, the same thing. You may be moving standard packages, and all of a sudden something different comes along. So, you need support of your peers to assist you to do a better job.
Yeah. So, given all those challenges in terms of the variability with employers requiring people who have some skill to come into their company versus there's a lot of offshoring going on, and, that means those basic tasks that give a young person some experience and a foot in the door really are disappearing. What are the challenges then in terms of placing people for you? And you're great. You're able to match people to the right employee and job. But what are the challenges around that? Does that cause you any challenges?
You need to explain to these newbies to the industry. And as I said, it could be someone that's worked in warehousing and now wants to try customs, or it could be someone that's worked in a retail store and wants to. Someone works in a retail store and they want to get into this industry. They don't understand a lot of it, so you've got to explain to them. But once they're past a school, either because those entry level opportunities are not there, they don't want to go backwards to go forwards in their career. So many of them are saying no.
But sometimes you do need to go backwards to
Correct.
go forwards. You've got to be humble.
Yes, but does everybody in this market want to be humble? No, they just really, the dollar is controlling everything.
Right.
So and the cost of living, especially in the last year, has escalated. So people are now really trying to hone in on roles that are long-term sustainable, financial, support their families, support them with their goals. So that's what's been hard.
Yeah.
Getting people to make that move. And I say to so many of them, 12 months and you will have a world of opportunity to try.
Yeah, get in there and just take the opportunity.
And learn, sponge off of it.
Yeah. Learn at every opportunity that you can, yeah. Tell me, Jana, so what makes your business different? I know you said it's hard, but, you've obviously got some tricks up your sleeve or some things that makes it work, because I hear a lot of success stories.
Thank you. I think honesty, integrity. I stick to those old school values from, back in the 80s where we all worked. Being honest with candidates about what the roles, what the expectations, what the customer are. Being honest with the customer about what the individual is. And no individual is perfect. So, we highlight to the customer these might be their negatives, but you can groom them and mould them into how your company wants them. So I think our success is just being honest and our integrity and a little bit of old school that goes with it. And we recently had a situation where a customer said, a new customer, he was quite grateful that we weren't just throwing him CVs that were AI processed. We were actually, and that's what we still do. We did it when we started and we still do it today. We interview people. We ask all the right questions. We talk to the customer, ask the questions so we can get the two to match.
So you do that work. You go through the filtering. So you get a deeper understanding of what the employee needs, and then you do the filtering, because I totally understand being given numerous CVs and going through them, time consuming, can be deflating too. You're just going, no strike, and at the end of the day, you want to see the CVs that really count, so you do the legwork in that.
And I'm, even if they're not 100% fit, even if they're an 80% fit or a 60, but if I see someone's got the attitude and the want, that's when I will go out of my way to help them to find that right role. And probably 95% where I've done that, they have become industry successes. But, I'm happy to help a person that wants to be helped. But, there are a lot that don't and know better. So I just go, no. But we're also very genuine in responding to everybody, letting everybody know, even if they're not successful, give them that feedback. And I think that's important. People need to know. And I think a lot of agencies and even employers don't offer that. So the people are left wondering, was I not good for the role? What was it?
Well, you don't know. Yeah, you don't know. So any bit of feedback is development. So
positive or negative, it will assist them moving forward.
Yeah, and it's a peace of mind too, isn't it?
Oh, for me, definitely, yeah.
I can see the passion in you, and I can see that's where a lot of your success comes, as well as the intelligence that you have and the experience that you have, right?
Thank you.
What is the most fulfilling part of your business for you?
I think for me, seeing firstly the individual have a career that they're happy in, that's important. Secondly, the customer has an employee that they're satisfied with and they're growing into teams, and that individual's growing within the company. That's the most satisfying bit. Like helping everybody. It's like a charity, helping someone to get to that next stage. I love it. And it's 24 years later and I'm still enjoying it like when I started.
Yeah, and obviously you get that feedback a lot. So that makes it even better, doesn't it?
It does.
And I gather you made a lot of friends through the industry, you know.
I have. And that's how, moving from Adelaide to Sydney, not knowing anybody, and especially starting in the recruitment side, yes, I've developed friendships. I've interviewed people that I've really gelled with and I wanted to connect with further down the track, and I have. And I'm quite genuine in my friendships. Like if you're in my social circle, my friend circle, you're there for a long time.
Yeah, totally get it. Jana, so what are the biggest challenges you're facing in your business?
Mainly lack of quality people and genuine people. We will get so many people apply for roles. When you try to call them, they don't pick up the phone. When you try to interact with them, they don't understand. You go, why do people apply for roles if they're not genuinely interested in that role? Or you get lack of quality. At the moment, we're getting a lot of international, either students, people that want sponsorship, trying to get into the Australian market, but majority of the clients want our local experience, understand. And Australia's a unique working area, and that's what I think a lot of the international countries don't understand. Asia is a different working environment. Europe is a different working, and USA is a different working environment, different mentality. And I do remember working for an American forwarder once, and I was told by the vice president, be clear on what you want. And I went, what do you mean? And I once wrote, for a funny story, and we needed a quote for DuPont. You know, everybody knows DuPont here, for Eskies, you know, what we call Eskies. So I sent off a message thinking that was quite standard, a quote for a 20-footer of Eskies. And the guy from America came back and he said, do you mean Eskimos, like human? And he was serious. And
what did they call them?
Well, they didn't, refrigerator bits.
Yeah.
But in America, unless you're quite clear in some regions, like in the Midwest, with your expectations, they cannot understand. Yeah, so and the Asians are different. Yeah. So every country and culture is so different. So poor us in Australia, we're this island, we're quite remote from everything else. So
and we have our colloquial
version
of English.
So the challenges are getting people to...
and scaring people about drop bears and, you know, things like that.
People, you know, don't understand the industry, so they're scared of it. You know, it's not standard like retail, going to a shop, work as a retail. They don't understand. So it has developed over the years. You know, everybody knows what a DHL plane looks like, the various. So if you start explaining from there and explain the process, they get genuinely interested. They go, oh, that's how we get our rice on our tables, or that's how these things happen. So you've got to spend a bit of time nurturing them. So the biggest challenge is getting the candidate salary expectation to match the customer salary. You know, and companies are doing it tough. The margins on shipping and air freight are ridiculously low. So they can't just bring in an entry-level person without the right skills and pay them top dollar, because there's no margin in it for the company. So the company really needs to keep within a budget to enable them to continue to grow, to sustain themselves in the market.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're quite unique, you're right. Australia's quite unique. It's an island, quite removed from the rest of the world. So you think about costs for the supply chain, you know, can be quite extensive. But also in terms of our trade terms, you know, it's quite unique to the rest of the world.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. And So the current market is quite a healthy market. There's plenty of work there.
There is work. There will always be work, because from the point of it arriving in the port or the airport to being delivered to the end customer, to a 3PL facility, a 4PL facility, there will always be work in Australia. Will we have the quality of the people we're looking for? Hasn't improved in the 24 years I've been in recruitment. You know, and
it's always a challenge, and it's always the
challenge.
The need to really get the youngies in and train them as well.
I still believe personally, and that's only my take, getting them in, giving them the hands-on ground experience, and then letting them move forward is the best way to do it, rather than textbook cases. And talking about brokers, I remember years ago, TAFE used to offer the course, and a lot of people had heard about broking, thought it was good money, so they would do the course but weren't actually working in the field, and passed the course and then lob up at a job and had no experience, because they had no experience. So that's sort of changed a lot now with the panel and everything. I think that's a better way to go. Yeah. But people need that first-hand experience to start with and build on. They
do, and that's the best way to learn, really, in many respects, to be able to work in a role or in an industry, and then perhaps maybe even do some study on the side. And it's symbiotic. It's a great relationship, because it really helps you accelerate in that field. And but how do we? What I hear is that we struggle to get the youngies to understand there are some real great career opportunities in this industry. What do you think we need to do to get that message out? And you talked about the customs brokers, there's a large percentage of them that are 50 plus, so, potentially looking to retire in the next 10 years.
Even government incentives, government gives incentives to apprentices, in trade fields. What about some incentives to businesses and to young folk to join it? Because it's not advertised through any school. They leave school, they've never heard of it. Yeah. So I think the government
a lot of people fall
into
roles. Is this still happening? Because, I hear this story a lot. I took a gap year, or I, fell into this by some weird situation, but I fell into the industry. I didn't actually ever consider it.
I don't think I've ever met anybody that actually considered it. It wasn't a career path that anybody, not that all my associates, actually went, I'm going to leave school and I'm going to be a customs broker. Although I did grow up in Port Adelaide, and that's where the margin of that was, and a lot of customs brokers, but not necessarily. People don't go, what's this? Nobody's heard. My son went to school and finished HSC a few years ago. None of his friends knew what international freight forwarding or customs brokerage was at all. I would try to entice them, but probably a good 30% went to trades, 30% went to uni. None. I don't think there's one of a big circle of friends that's actually in our industry.
So the awareness still isn't there.
Still, and it wasn't there 30 years ago, and it's still not there today. And as I said, more, promotion. I think the government is one that can promote. They're promoting so many other areas. Promote this area, because we'll always need it. It's not an industry that's ever going to die, because our products will always be imported and exported. One of the biggest exporters of some products. That's always going to be happening. So we need the people. And, yes, everything's going electronic, but you still need the individuals to feed that so that it all works efficiently.
Yep, that's right. You still need the people to drive those the systems, don't you?
Exactly. And the experience to, guide the next person and the next person as people are sort of, leaving and retiring the industry. There's not a new generation coming through, and that's where we're sort of...
It's a really big gap, isn't it?
Very big gap, yeah.
Which is a concern, yeah.
Next 10 years, watch that space.
We need to get young people on, is what I'm hearing. We need to make them aware that there are careers and lots of work opportunities, and we need to do it early in the piece so that people understand that there are careers there. They don't have to go to uni. They can go and work and study as well, and possibly not have to worry about a big hex bill, but and still be able to build a great career.
I have a good story with that. Many years ago, I met this young guy, and he didn't want to go to uni. He didn't want to be a trade, and he somehow fell into the customs course very young. And by the time he was 21, he was a licensed customs broker working for a big multinational. And he was talking to his friends that went to uni. He was earning more money than them, and they had a HEX deck to go. Yeah. And now I think I just checked him out on LinkedIn the other day, and he's high up with a massive importer, still in the customs brokerage. But I remember him saying, Jana, by my 21st birthday, I was so far ahead of my group of friends who were either in trades or in uni. So, yeah, he saw it, again, landed in it. I've even had plumbers leave their roles, their friends were, and restart their career in brokerage.
Incredible. Yeah. I do know a few people with degrees in other fields, actually, that have decided to become customs brokers. Seems it's a really valued qualification.
It seems so.
But, yeah, it seems to lead people to other opportunities. You don't have to, not just broking. So, Jana, tell me about your business. So how many staff do you have?
We're only quite small and niche. There's only the three of us, but we still manage a big workload of customers because we have got those old school values. We make sure that we, screen our candidates, find out the best from them, offer that to the customer. We're all doing virtually the same thing, advertising on the same platforms. It's just being able to identify someone with potential, someone with want, go from there. That's the better part. So, you can have 100 people. You can have AI doing that, as one of our customers said, and not one was suited. He was very disappointed. Whereas we gave him a selection of maybe 2 or 3 and he picked one, and one has been a success story, and he has even written us a testimonial. It was a new customer.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So AI can match, but
doesn't
right. Well, it can't think like a human. So.
Exactly, and that's what you've got to get out of the individual. What do they want? And how are they going to be motivated to continue their career? Everybody's going to take a job for the right money at the moment, but in 6 months, 12 months, are they going to be happy in that position? So you want to make sure that you find that mix.
You need to be happy and have a good purpose.
Exactly, and enjoy what you're doing.
And so you have 3 staff, and are you mainly based in Sydney?
Well, head office is in Sydney, but we cover all branches, mainly Melbourne and Brisbane. That's where most of the work is, and not many opportunities in poor old Adelaide. But Brisbane and Melbourne are just as buoyant. And as I said, now we found with Teams meetings, we're able to interview a lot more people, cover a lot more bases. So that's working a lot better for us as well.
And what platforms are you advertising on? Just the main ones?
The main ones. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Seek, we're on, what's it called, Indeed. Quite a few, but honestly, where my success is because I've been in it 24 years, I have a lot of connections. So people that I may have helped 10 years ago and have had babies or have left the industry or have changed jobs will always come back to me knowing that I'm always going to try. I will try and give them the best service I can. No guarantees, and I say that even to the customer. I can't guarantee they're going to find you the right person, and even to the individual, but we try our best. And I think that is where we get the best quality of candidates is through repeat or referrals.
Yeah, great. That's great. Now, so what does the future hold for your company?
Oh, well, we're in that growth phase now, especially with easier access to social media and platforms like that. LinkedIn and those things were not available 10 years ago. Right. So now we're more exposed, and with the likes of Seek and their Saucer, and we recently won, last year, the best recruitment agency in logistics in New South Wales. That gave us even more exposure to a broader market because we were really generally focused on freight forwarding, customs brokers, but now we're in logistics, finance, lots of other areas because the same principles apply of recruiting. But I suppose my success has been understanding freight forwarding has made it a lot easier, but then you understand other industries as well. You just learn, and that's what I've had to do.
You do, absolutely. That's part of the success, learning correct. As you go.
And to have survived 24 years, I'm quite happy with where we're standing today.
Done. And you got Recruiter of the Year last year?
Last year, 2023.
Oh, well done. Fantastic.
Yes. So fantastic. A proud moment. Hopefully we can achieve it again this year.
Fantastic. I hope you can too.
Thank you.
I'm sure you will as well. But, Jana, some quick fire questions we have.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. What could you give a newcomer to the industry? What sort of advice could you give them if, to somebody new to the industry, wanting a job and in the industry?
Oh, the opportunities are massive, bigger than they can ever imagine. So they won't be boxed in one particular area. There are hundreds of opportunities technically in a range of areas. So there's the opportunities are so great they won't be limited to growing their career. That's what I would say.
And just be prepared to roll up your sleeves.
Yeah.
And
learn.
Learn and give it a go. Yeah. Can't even read my writing. No.
I can't either.
What do you think are the skills that somebody really needs to succeed in the logistics industry?
Well, first, obviously, good communication, because we're not a product industry, we're a communication industry. So they need to be able to communicate well on all levels, spoken, written, or good communication. What are the skills? Not really a skill, but I would say just have that ambition and passion, like what I've got, like what you've got, like what a lot of our industry peers have got. That's their successes, because they had that passion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think. If you've got a passion for something, you will succeed in it. If you don't,
and you'll make some really good friends in industry.
Yeah, yes,
there's
that's
a lot
the
of
main
great people,
thing.
isn't
Yes,
there?
and it's a good industry. It is
Yeah.
a good industry.
Yeah, we touched on the broker's qualification, but there are other qualifications too that would come in handy in industry. Do you find that, would you recommend that to people? Come in, get a job, roll your sleeves up, but look at possibly upskilling through some study.
Constantly, I say that to a majority of, especially the young ones, or even people that are in a point in their career that they're bored with what they've been doing for the last decade. What's the next step? There are so many opportunities, and I always say to them, try the role first. It may be even in customs, and if they find that they don't like that area, do others. There's university courses, logistics degrees. There are hundreds of areas in education that you can, tap into once you know who you are and what you want to do. And I say to people, just give it a go for the first. Don't commit to it forever, because not like uni students, they start a course, 6 months later they're not happy in it. I said, try it physically, and then if you really enjoy it, go and do the course. But if not, move into another area and try that.
Yeah, fantastic. Jana, so one of the things we like to do is ask you to leave a question for the next guest. Do you think you could leave a question for them?
I think a question and something also to ponder, which we didn't cover too much. This industry is international, so the opportunities for anybody new or wanting a career change is not only limited to Australia. It's the roles are international, maybe Asia, Europe, USA, similar capacity. So your knowledge is still valuable, and the growth within all these countries is so much bigger. So I'd like the next person to talk about potentially what else is out there and open to individuals.
Okay, so that's the question.
That's my question.
What else is out there and open to individuals in this industry?
Well, there's everything. There's anything depending on where their personality is and their aspirations are. I can't answer that for all of them. Every individual is different. Look at you. You're in the customs field, specialising. There's others like Zoran Ilic, who's freight forwarding, customs, and even he's into a 3PLing. So there's such a range of opportunities, but you've got to find that niche for yourself.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for leaving.
You're welcome.
Jana, where can people find you and your company? How can they contact you?
You can go to our website, sfsolutions.com.au. We're in Alexandria, in the hub of where everything's happening. So right in the centre of near the airport, near WiseTech, which majority of our customers use the CargoWise program. So that makes it easy when I say, do you know where WiseTech is? Yes, they do. So you can come in personally to the office. You can call us, 83390733.
Perfect.
Email myself or our office. We're always available, and we're like a 24/7 operation. Our phones always divert.
That's
amazing. We're available to everybody when they need us.
That's amazing, fantastic. Now people can also now find you on the Freight Directory listing as well. So Stone Freight Solutions is available on the websites and all the social media outlets that Jana's just mentioned, as well as the Freight Directory listing. Thank you, Jana. Thank you very much for being a part of our podcast and coming along and sharing your fantastic stories.
Thank you. It's been good reminiscing about our careers and this industry in particular, and longevity. I suppose for me it's 40 years, so it's a long time.
And still going strong. Well
and still
done.
Going strong.
Keep up the great work.
Well,
fantastic.
Support from good customers that has enabled us to remain in the business and be successful.
Yeah, you're obviously doing something right there.
Hopefully.
As a wrap up, thank you again for another insightful episode with the Freight Directory podcast. We want to remind you to stay connected with us across all the social platforms. So follow us at Freight Directory on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook and TikTok. If you really liked our episode, do let us know, and do keep following us so that you don't miss out on any of the episodes, and you can stay up to date with the latest in news and developments in the freight and logistics industry. Thank you for listening. Until next time, keep moving.